Age of Empires 4, the long-awaited successor to a saga that redefined RTS or real-time strategy game, has taken the world by storm, not only for its innovation, but for its faithful recreation of an old game. The game has multiple civilizations that cover a lot of territory, from the Longbowmen firing down at the prideful and chivalrous knights, to the Mongols looting and pillaging all of Asia and Eastern Europe. In this series of videos, we will cover the differences in gameplay choices that these civilizations have and how their real-life counterparts develop, starting with one of the most popular civs overall, the English. Keep in mind, these videos seek to analyze the history behind these civilizations from a history enthusiast perspective, and if there is any reference that I missed, please point them out in the comments below. Let's start by checking the overview provided by the Age of Empires website. According to the Age of Empires website, playing as the English in Age of Empires 4 opens the door to several key advantages, creating an exciting battlefield for resources and victory. The English have access to cheaper farms compared to other civilizations, giving them a highly dependable source of food to greatly expand upgrades and armies throughout matches. The English specialize in the network of castles. Town centers, outposts, towers, and keeps trigger an alarm when an enemy approaches, prompting nearby units and defensive structures to fire faster for a short period. Their keeps can produce all units, allowing the English defense to reign supreme in a match. The Longbowman is a special English unit and a civ-specific improvement of the archer in other civilizations. The Longbowman has longer range, thus an advantage in ranged combat, with access to significant upgrades. Now that we've gone over what the Age of Empires developers want us to know about the English, let's do some history. The history of England is vast and cannot simply be put under the umbrella that is the English, because depending on the time period, that name referred to a different type of people. The name England traces its roots back to the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms that controlled most of what is now known as modern-day England. These kingdoms were formed after a Germanic invasion of the British Isles that was left mostly abandoned after the fall of the Roman Empire. Although these Germanic kingdoms did not necessarily enter within the Middle Ages timeframe of the game, because it is supposed to represent the high and late Middle Ages, sometimes dipping its toes into modernity, they are somewhat represented during the Dark Age of the English. To prove this point, anyone can hear that the vanguard men-at-arms of the English, when selected, say something along the lines of Huskarla, which are related to the housecarls or the retinue of the Saxon nobility, which consisted of heavy armed infantry, in other words, the elite infantry of these early Englishmen. This nice little nod to history presents itself at the beginning of English language, where it can be clearly seen as more Germanic as opposed to what it will become eventually in its later ages. The Anglo-Saxon kingdoms did have a standing army that was mostly made of heavy infantry shield walls that had adapted the tactics brought forth by the Viking invasions. This could be seen also in the scenario from the English campaign Hastings, in which the player takes control of William the Conqueror, the first Norman king of England. In later ages, the English that we see are what is now known as Anglo-Norman. This is represented by the language gaining a more Romance touch, for most of the nobility during this period was Norman, and the peasantry consisted of Anglo-Saxons. On that note, the language that we hear is a combination between the two from Feudal Age on. For further information regarding how they incorporated the language, I recommend watching the video Music and Voiceover that I will leave linked in the description. During the Feudal Age, the English gained access to the longbow. Although the weapon is heavily attributed to the English due to their widespread use, the original creators are the Celtic kingdoms around the year 1180 of the Common Era. The Anglo-Normans, after seeing its effectiveness in the battlefield, incorporated this weapon into their armies, firstly as Welsh mercenaries and then as a part of their army composition. This weapon and its effectiveness are heavily debated within these historical communities, but it is in battles such as Crecy and Agincourt where this weapon shined the most and was able to contain the might of the French cavalry. Although the Normans were known for their cavalry tradition, and it was that same cavalry that gave them the edge at Hastings, the English are not particularly strong with their heavy cavalry, maybe for balance reasons. The combination of Anglo-Saxon and Norman culture will exist for the rest of the Middle Ages and will culminate with the War of the Roses, a civil war between two notable families, the Lancasters and the Yorks, which were subsets of the Plantagenet, the family to which Richard the Lion-Hearted belonged to. In the Castle Age, we are closing into the English Modern Age. I believe that the English represented at this age are the period at the beginning of the 100 Years' War, although the Age of Empires official website refers to them as Gothic English. Under the leadership of Edward III and the Black Prince, his son, this English army has abandoned its feudal traditions and incorporated heavy infantry in their formation. This can be seen when the Huscarls evolve into a more accurate representation of the men-at-arms. The English also get access to the armor-clad unique tech that gives them even more armor. I could not find any specific references to this particular point, but I will look more into them. If you can suggest anything in the comments below, I will be more than happy to include it. We can even see how the models closely resemble the English army of the time. During this period, we can appreciate how there is a heavy focus on the English trebuchet, both with their ability and their unique tech that gives them an area of effect damage, also known as AoE. This is supposed to represent how important trebuchets were in English history, particularly in the siege of Stirling Castle, where a big trebuchet was constructed by Edward Longshanks. If anyone watched the movie Outlaw King, it is the trebuchet that shows up at the beginning of the movie. This is the last period of the Anglo-Normans. After that, the modern nation of England will be born, with a completely different approach to warfare, which we see in Age of Empires 3. This last period is characterized by both the end of the 100 Years' War, when the English lost against a modern French army, losing all their territories in France, including Normandy, and the previously mentioned War of the Roses, in which the families Lancaster and York fought a bloody civil war for the throne, which will culminate with the Tudors, a combination of both houses reclaiming the kingdom. As far as we see in game, there is no reference to the War of the Roses in their gameplay. After this period, the usage of the longbow fell out of favor due to the amount of time it took to train an effective longbowman and the popularization of gunpowder weaponry that characterized the modern age. The unique tech enclosures refer to the popularization of these wooden walls during this time, marking the ownership of lands to members of the nobility. The passive generation of gold may refer to the rents that the ruling class received from these enclosures. That is it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if so, please give it a like. They are free and they help me keep going with this little project I have going on. Hopefully, I release all of these videos before they release new civs and I have to go over them. This was all. Deus Vult.